Hello, everybody. Thank you for your patience and sorry we left you in that waiting room a little longer than normal. But we're just doing some troubleshooting, so please bear with us for the next 10 minutes or so. But hello again. Welcome back to TMR's Master Advisor series. Today's April 11th, 2024. This is Master Advisor episode number 88. We're going to be talking about luxury travel today with a past guest, Angela Hughes, who I'm so excited to talk to. And we are all so excited to have her. I want to run us through some announcements before we introduce Angela. We introduce our sponsor, who we are trying to patch in right now. But just a couple of announcements first, and then hopefully everything will be ironed out by then. Just a couple tips. I like to always give these tips at the beginning of these sessions. Just switch into speaker view if you don't have that up on your Zoom already. And then if you want to open the chat on the bottom right, you can do that. Sometimes you have to click the more logo on the bottom of your Zoom. But I'm going to do our best, take some questions and take some comments today through the chat. So please keep it open. Pop in there. Hello, Richard. I see him in the chat already. And we'll hopefully incorporate it as we go along today. I want to thank everyone who came out a couple weeks ago for that session with Carrie Dyer. I really cannot thank Carrie enough for her time and effort for joining us. It's not a small undertaking to do that kind of session, and it's always so educational and so worthwhile with her. And this last time out was no different. We got so much great feedback on that. We also had so many questions about getting that information from Carrie's session. So I just wanted to drop another plug in before we kick off today's session. For everyone who wants to watch that one with Carrie, we're going to go ahead and drop the link to the YouTube in the chat now. I say it every week, but that's just the home to all our video and audio content. Any videos we've done are in there throughout this program. Again, we're number 88, so there's a lot of content in there. If you want to head over there, you can watch Carrie's last session. You can watch Angela's last couple sessions too. And if you are over there, please go ahead and drop us a subscription. Again, that really helps us a whole lot keep growing this channel. All right, one more quick announcement having to do with TMR. We're in the middle of putting together another one of our outlooks. And if you're not familiar with our outlooks, those are our bigger research projects that are mostly insights into how the travel advisor community is doing, how suppliers are interacting with the trade. It's our opportunity to really take a look at what's happening inside the industry, and particularly what's happening with frontline travel advisors. We've done a lot of these, including some specifically on the retail environment. We've also done a couple on ocean cruises and river cruises. We're finishing up the responses for our tour one right now. So if you are an advisor who does a lot of work with tour companies, we'd love to hear from you. We're offering a couple of gift cards with the survey too. So if you have time, it'll be worth your while to help us out, but also it might be worth your while monetarily too. So we'll drop the link to the chat in a second. And then if you have time, we'd love for you to check out that survey. Okay. So last thing before we get to Angela, we have a sponsor for today's episode. Ralph Logan, the director of group sales for Swan Hellenic, is joining us. We've had some trouble with the connection with Ralph, so I'm hoping he's still available. I just want to check right now. But if he's not, hopefully we can circle back with him during the session. But let me just check.
Hello, it's Rolf.
Oh, we have Rolf. Hi, Rolf. Nice to hear from you.
Great. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, Rolf, we'd love to hear from you, hear from Swan Athletic just before we let Angela take over the session.
Sure. Are you ready for me to start?
Yes.
Okay. And so the subject of the day, why luxury advisors need a sales strategy? That was a pretty easy question for me. And just for those who do not know me, I've been in the industry for 30 years. I've owned a travel agency. My wife still owns the travel agency for over 20 years. And so we're seasoned veterans in the travel industry. But one reason happened yesterday when my wife was frustrated. And I said, "Why are you frustrated, honey?" She said, "Well, I booked a client to Italy, 9 nights, booked them some nice hotels, great locations, great terms. And they invited a couple, and the couple came back and said, we can book this for $1,350 less." And it was because my wife, as a travel agent, booked non-restricted fares, paid later fares, great locations. And I told her, I said, honey, this is going to happen. But if you were selling in the luxury market, they appreciate those better locations, those non-restricted fares. That type of customer is the type of customer that appreciates the travel agent. So that just happened yesterday. That's one reason you need a sales strategy, is to tap into the luxury market. Another reason, I was talking to a travel agency about a week ago, and she had told me she just booked a cruise. I said, that's great. Got a great commission? She said it was $30. I said, what? She said, yeah, it was a casino booking. I'm like, oh my God. Okay, another reason for a sales strategy to tap into the luxury market. And when I speak to travel agencies about not having a plan, I use the movie Forrest Gump, which most of us have seen. The introduction of that movie, there's a feather just floating in the wind, and the wind is controlling the direction of the feather, and it's just falling to the ground. Now, if you imagine a feather going in any different direction, it's like a travel agency without a plan or without a sales strategy. So, but if you move your hands around the feather, you might be able to get the feather to fall in your lap. But you know, this type of business isn't going to fall in your lap. You have to develop a plan. You have to chase it. And when you do, big things follow, commissions with commas in them. And I'm sure that Angela is going to tell us more. So thank you for allowing me to host at Swan Hellenic. We're open, ready for your bookings, and we can help you. We have professionals to help you with your luxury sales strategy. And let's give Angela a listen. Thank you, Angela. I'm so excited to listen to your thoughts.
Hey, thank you, Rolf. And again, we appreciate you being flexible with the connection issues. So Tom dropped the link to the Swan Hellenic website in there. If we have any other relevant stuff, we'll drop it in there for you. But thank you so much, Rolf. Thank you for being flexible. And yeah, like you said, I'm very happy to introduce our guest for today, who's Angela Hughes. Angela's named the industry. I know a lot of you know her. We've had her on this program a couple times before. We're so excited to have her back. First thing I want to just say, welcome, Angela. I know you're in Europe, so you are busy as well. So thank you for making the time for us today. You just might have to unmute, Angela. There you
That
go.
would help, you guys. I'm so happy to be back, and I appreciate you guys at the magazine for
So
inviting.
let's I know, again, like I mentioned, a lot of advisors on the call know you. I know you're a past guest too, but if you want to take a couple minutes just to introduce yourself to maybe the advisors who might not know you right now.
Yeah, so I'm not a rookie to the industry. I've been in the industry since I was a kid, 14. I grew up in it with my parents. They ran big agencies out in the West, brick and mortar stores. And things have changed so much over the last 30 years. I mean, we've gone from brick and mortar to remote working, to hosting, into the luxury space. And I remember, you know, there was a time when people would come in, and if they bought like a balcony on Celebrity or Royal Caribbean, that was like your luxury client. You know, they bought a mini suite and you just celebrated. I mean, the definition of luxury has changed so much over the years, and I'm so excited we get to talk more about that today.
Yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit about that, a little bit about the definition of luxury. I want to ask you a couple questions about demand
Yeah.
and things like that, and then hopefully we'll get into, like Ralph mentioned, the sales strategy. But let's talk a
Sure.
little bit about demand. It seems like post-pandemic, particularly now post-pandemic, I guess we're 4 years more since the initial headlines. It seems like the demand for luxury travel is as high as it's ever been before.
Well, and actually that's true. And I'm just going off numbers from 2023 because I did a podcast with another group, and they actually had on one of the big credit cards on there. So they were talking the economics and I was talking the luxury. So they were talking the economics of luxury and I was talking the travel luxury. And they were right in line with what people were spending. But we've kind of seen a twist in 2024 because we're starting to see some of the economic activity in major developed markets now starting to flatline. But the interesting thing is, while that's affecting the family markets, and you know, people don't want to spend $2,000 to take 5 kids to Europe right now for airfare alone, we still see pricing pressure for the luxury experience going upward. And so even though we're seeing the economy cool off a little bit, and I take that mostly because I watch the UK market quite heavily, the European market, to see what they're doing. And, you know, the UK is saying, hey, it's starting to soften. And we're seeing that as well in some of our niche markets, but luxury is still hotter than ever. And that's why I think this type of conversation today is just needed.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what it feels like too. It feels like there's more supply coming online from the luxury
Yeah.
suppliers. It does feel like luxury is really having a moment, and people who maybe haven't traveled in that category before are very open and willing to spending the money they need to in order to be a part of that category. We've had a couple of luxury guests on over the past
Yeah.
maybe 12 months, and we talked about like this new definition for luxury travel. I know personalization, exclusivity, and sort of uniqueness to the trip seem to be like the big things luxury clients want. I'm curious, are those components that you keep in your mind when you're talking about or thinking about luxury travel?
Well, I always kind of want to just, you know, zip my lips tight when somebody tells me that they want to sell in the luxury space, because that has such a broad definition. And we saw so many people jump onto, I'm in the luxury market, like during COVID. And, you know, everybody started twisting that way, and host agencies started bringing on luxury people to train, including myself, hired by several host agencies to train their people. And so, you know, all of a sudden people decided like, hey, we got to get on the luxury market. It was kind of a trendy thing to do. But, you know, and then we started saying like, oh, it's personalization, exclusivity. But I mean, there are some real factors that lie into it. And we need to probably note that, you know, income and wealth levels with accumulated savings remain really high for higher net worth households, and that makes a huge difference. And so when we're defining luxury with people, it still really comes down to wealth in the USA. So we can say personalization, and that might mean something different for everybody else, and a low end person can still have luxury. I mean, the bottom line is it still remains a healthy tracker, I think, to look at the income and wealth levels. But I would say there's a couple different things that's showing up in 2024. Solo travel, the rise in solo travel.
Cool.
And that's because in the 2023 census data, and I'm a former college professor in travel and tourism with a master's degree. So here's where the geek side comes out in me. But, you know, all of a sudden right now we have a quarter of US households now who have just one person living there, who single or solo for one reason or another. And so now we're seeing a big twist in the luxury market to cater towards those solo people. And that means price adjustments as well, because solo travelers don't like to pay for two people just because they're solo. So we're seeing a boom in that. And you'll see that with a lot of different, you know, companies coming out with different things to attract that solo marketer. And that could be something that you guys on this call or could be attracting as well, as that solo. I have so many single friends. I'm 55 years old. You know, they divorced well. You know, they want to travel, and you know that's a hot place to be. Women and men, just not women. Okay. The other thing I think is really popular right now, wellness travel. And I know that you've had different conversations about that, but that continues to grow, and people are seeking destinations that really do promote that health and relaxation, rejuvenation all around. I do want to talk about kind of the remote destinations and the adventure travel, especially because we've got a sponsor here who's got a lot of experience in the adventure seeking arena. But I think the expedition market is such a great place to throw your hat into the ring. I did that years ago. I'll be hosting an Arctic cruise this year. I've done Antarctica. I've done a lot of really remote destinations, and that really caters to somebody who is experienced. They've maybe done 6 continents. They're looking for a 7th.
Yeah.
They're looking for, and maybe not so much an Instagrammable moment, but something that they can kind of brag about. I mean,
Yeah.
I hate to say it, but you know, travel is so braggy, and we all want to talk about that. but those expeditions, people that buy expeditions also buy safaris, they buy river cruises. And so you can shuffle that type of client through a lot of different luxury brands. I think another thing that's coming in hot is just the tech enhanced experience. I'm a techie myself, and I feel like people are going to high-end hotels and they want integrated technology. In fact, I almost will not get on a ship if it doesn't have high-speed internet and places to plug in and but then that also goes against the grain because some people want to be unplugged, which is another trend. I, for one, am always working remotely, so I need to always be plugged in. I wish I was the unplugged person, but that's another area that's growing crazy. And then I think multi-gen travel is so popular right now. High-end people want to spend their money on their kids now. They don't want to leave it to them. They want to be with them. They want to experience it with them.
Okay. Yeah, so I just have a couple notes, Angela. One, it is kind of refreshing to hear someone tie luxury travel to high net worth individuals. I know that's sort of assumed, but there's been a lot of discussions that that's maybe not that everyone can be a luxury traveler now, and it does seem like that is a possibility. But again, like you're gonna need to have a certain amount of disposable income and able to take these wellness trips, these expedition trips, things like this. So it is refreshing to hear that.
Right.
Um, and the solo travel, something I actually heard recently was that it's not just divorcees or single people, like husbands and wives maybe do want to travel solo without their partner. And that seems to be boosting that market as well. And then even group travel for girlfriend getaways from women, maybe. They want to travel together, but they also don't want to be sitting and staying in the same room. So that seems to be boosting the solo travel market as well. Is that something you're experiencing?
Sure, absolutely. And I
Yeah.
think we'd be crazy not to mention the rise of the millennial traveler, because believe it or not, the millennial traveler holds a big piece of the market share in the luxury space. Um, they're looking to combine indulgence, personal enrichment, and I think travel's seen as like an activity for them, like a leisure activity. It's an opportunity, it's an education, it's personal growth. And I just recently traveled with a group of alumni. They're founders of an entrepreneurial program for a university. And it was interesting. All of those people had sold tech companies, and they were, most of them were in their 40s doing, just with free time and lots of money to spend. And the interesting thing with them is they're kind of used to doing their own travel. Like I have 4 kids, 20 to 29. They don't even know what a travel agency is, even though they grew up in one, because that wasn't part of their, like, I was very groomed for that growing up in that type of household. But my kids are always like, no, I'll do my own thing. And so the millennial market is a little bit scary for people. But when you tap into the luxury space of millennial, the target market can be gigantic. You can't just think about people wandering around with a backpack and trying to sleep in an Airbnb, because there's big money being spent in the millennial space.
Yeah. And it does, like, even like millennials, I know the industry likes to talk about demographics a lot, and millennials was this younger demographic who maybe were given a certain attitude when people were spoken over the years a few years ago, but the elder millennials are approaching 50 now, so they definitely do have that
Yeah.
disposable income. They're well into their careers, or they 20 almost 30 years into the careers.
Right.
So yeah, it definitely is an opportunity. I want to get into specifically the sales strategy stuff, Angela, because we only have about a little less than 20 minutes left.
Okay.
A couple of things we spoke about earlier in the week. I want to sort of talk about this and hopefully give the advisors or the attendees of this call some maybe tangible things they can take away. One thing I thought was super interesting that is something I know you think about is client personas for luxury travelers. I was hoping you could talk us through that a little bit. Like what is necessarily a client persona, and why is it important, particularly for a segment like luxury?
Yeah. So first of all, I call that an ideal client avatar. And I think that's really important that everybody defines what their ideal client avatar is. The biggest mistake I see when I'm speaking to people or doing private consulting with them is that they come in and they're just like, oh, I want to sell luxury. I want to sell in the luxury space. And I'm like, what does that mean to you? Who's your ideal client avatar? So you guys can all Google ideal client avatar, and you can pull off a dozen worksheets that you can start filling out, asking questions like, first of all, in the luxury space, there's a defined person. Like I know exactly who the persona is for my brand. It's just not somebody in their 50s or 60s who lives in a high net worth neighborhood, who, is black or white, is this, you need to really narrow it down. Like when people say they're in a niche market, like I don't find luxury to be a niche. A niche is, for me, is the type of person that I'm selling to, because I don't want to just narrow in and focus on just Italy, because Italy, that person might want to go to Antarctica next, and I need to be able to do that. So I say narrow down a niche into who that persona is. And for me, like it's really clear. Like I work in the private equity space, in tech investors. When I was younger, it used to be doctors and dentists, because my husband's in orthopedic devices. And so I'd pick up a lot of orthopedists. But surprisingly enough, our doctors and dentists aren't spending as much as now our tech is. And so I made a shift probably over the last decade to narrowing down into a persona that was even just more Uber focused. Now, you can make this easy on yourself too, because that could be a set of school teachers, because surprisingly, a set of school teachers who have their summers off, who know that they're going to take a vacation, who put money away for that, could also be a high spender. And so it doesn't mean you just have to go out and run out and try to attract every person that's ever sold a tech company. It could be as simple as your local school teachers who have their summers off, who might be encouraged to form a group on AMA waterways, and I said AMA because I'm on their cruise right now, but maybe form a group on one of the river cruises, and then maybe be the Pied Piper for that. So get uber focused on who your person is, and make that a reality. And then where do you find that person? That's the bigger question I get asked, because people that are in the high net worth space, usually have an iPhone. They might drive a Beamer. They might have a Gucci bag. They might not be online as much, because they like to keep kind of a hidden persona, so to speak. But you want to be where they are, whether that's country clubs. And listen, you might be saying, well, great, I don't golf, or I can't afford that. But everybody can volunteer, and you'll find a ton of high net worth people in the volunteer sector. And I love to put that out there for people. Volunteer, you'll meet a ton of people who want to give back and have money to give back. And it's easy when you're sitting there stuffing food bags for Thanksgiving to share what you do, and be interested in sharing what they do.
Yeah, that's great info. So that is finding a luxury persona that you want to cater to. Like you mentioned, you went from doctors and orthopedics to the tech space. I mean, could you talk a little bit about making that switch, but like your thought process when you're replacing one group with another, or organically replacing one group with another? Like how does that inform your choices when you're talking about branding or client communication, or anything else you think would be important?
Yeah, well, first of all, I want to mention that it's really crucial for several reasons to have long-term relationships with whoever your persona is. If you are just out there posting on Facebook, that is at the top of the marketing funnel. Social media is just, the marketing funnel has several pieces to it. That's a whole nother conversation. But I'll have so many people come up to me and say like, oh, I post every day and I get the word out and I send out a newsletter, but I don't have any clients. And I want to say, well, where are your long-term relationships? Where are you meeting people? Because when you grow up in luxury, so to speak, a lot of luxury clients come from referrals. They refer within their club. Okay, club meaning the people they socialize with. Okay, I just went to the Mekong with these people and they told 2 friends. You want your referrals to be your best marketer for you. Okay, and that means you're going to have to get out there and talk to people. You're going to have to get out there and create relationships. You cannot sit behind a screen and just post and send out a newsletter and hope the phone rings. Because another thing is, like, you need to be calling them. You need to be approaching them. Hi, John. I just wanted to see if you had plans for next year. Let's see what we can do for you. Because it only takes one Facebook post to see that your cousin or your investment banker or your lawyer just took a trip and didn't call you to do it. And then you're like, how come they didn't call me? Well, are you calling them? This is a very proactive environment to work in. You cannot sit back and hope that the leads are going to come to you. These are long-term relationships. based on referrals, based on feedback and improvement, and then you have a competitive advantage to take advantage of.
Yeah, like Kimberly mentioned in the chat, it seems to be all about building those personal relationships. It does seem like, I know referrals are big for every agent, no matter what client they're serving, but like you mentioned, Angela, it seems like people in the luxury space, people who are maybe the high net worth people, value referrals more than they value any other category of leads or lead-ins. Like, it does seem like they're more likely to trust someone they meet at the country club, or someone maybe who's also in their C-suite with them. They seem to trust those opinions more than they would trust an ad on social media.
Absolutely. I always find that like high net worth individuals. So let's talk about three categories real quick. We have your high net worth individuals who really could spend pretty much whatever they want. You know, maybe they're doing private jets, maybe they're 50 to 100,000, maybe they're doing alumni groups. And then you kind of have your middle range, 20 to maybe $50,000, where they're still looking for value. I mean, they're looking to buy in, you know, if they're spending 25,000, they still want to make sure they're getting the best value for that money. And then you've got the whole other category of people who are going to define luxury a million different ways. And maybe they are that school teacher who just upgraded and she feels like this is the most luxurious vacation of her life. And so we're talking about three different types of categories. In the high net worth individual category, where people are really popping and spending and really taking advantage of all of the great VIP portfolios we've got in the consortiums and everything, they, for one, don't want to be dropping, you know, that type of money on the internet, you know, and so you're going to have to show your value every step of the way, from that initial contact with them, to your onboarding and engagement call, to having complete, you know, ongoing communication with them, and then delivering just complete value. And then they'll go ahead and say, look, I used Angela, super easy to work with. She texts back really fast. She's always traveling abroad, so she's somewhere, you know, and they tell two friends, and that's how it starts. Now you're probably thinking, well, how do I get the first person? Again, you've got to go out and meet real people because real people are who are buying in this category. And I don't care if you live in a motorhome or 6 square feet, you can sell whatever you put out there. Okay. You do not sell out of your pocket. Do not feel like I'm not luxury. That's not me. I don't buy that way. I don't even travel that way. I don't care.
Yeah.
Your messaging is so important to what you put out there that your personal life plays no role in this. How you travel, how you spend your money, what you're doing. Everything that you put out there needs to represent your brand and your available, or your delivery, what you can deliver through the process.
Yeah, I think the term I've heard in the past is, or the advice I've heard for this segment is, don't sell from your own pocket.
For
Like,
sure.
like, you might cringe when you see some prices, especially like business class flights now seem to just be outrageous. But what I'm hearing from luxury travel advisors is that people aren't shy about spending on business class travel. So don't sell from your own pocket. And then one thing I did want to ask Angela, like you mentioned, people who do have, or who are spending this much on travel, they do have options. Like, they have the ability to shop around or to go to a different travel advisor who more than willing wants their business simply because of the amount of money they're spending. Curious, like, for you and your agency, why do you think your clients are loyal to you? Like, what kind of things do you think they value in the relationship between you or one of your advisors and themselves?
Luxury travelers don't want to shop around. Again,
Okay.
that would be kind of our lower end tier of that, who's still doing the shopping. People that are spending 50,000 or even 30,000, they don't have the time to shop around. They just want to know that they're not going to get screwed. And so you
Okay.
need to constantly be showing your value to them of what you're going to bring to them. And you need to explain that to them, like, look, you can do this. And here's one tip I always use in upselling people is, like, show people the model home. Okay. Take them to the model home, show them the model home of travel, you know, and then be like, hey, I know this costs maybe $2,000 or $3,000 more than you were planning on spending, if not 10,000 more. And your budget was here, but let me show you what you could do. And most people will buy the model home. We know that from real estate, right? Nobody wants to go in and see wood floors and then get linoleum in the starter home they just bought, right?
Yeah.
So always show them the model home. We need to reverse our selling mindset. 20 years ago, we were like, gotta get the lowest price because they're gonna go on Expedia and price shop it and, and might go to Costco and all of these things. You have to roll it the other direction. Now you're enticing them. You're showing them what they can do because they may have not thought about the benefits. You've got to bring in the benefits to them, the customized solutions for them, and show them the model home.
Is that seem to be what's most important for them? Like, you show them the benefits. Does the customization seem to be the biggest benefit for them, or is it that you're going to take care of everything? Their time is not going to be spent having to plan this trip. They're just simply going to need to put down the money.
Yeah, I think all of the above.
Yeah.
People want the customization. You've heard that on everything that you've done. They want the personalization. They want the service. But I mean, they also want to know what they don't know. They might have heard, they might have seen on Instagram or something, but if you can surprise them and wow them, the wow factor is such a huge piece of this experiential experience. Is that even a thing? Experiential, whatever, for these authentic cultural events we're having in travel now. So your pitch needs to be unique, it needs to be immersive, and it needs to really align with their interest. And that's where that discovery call is so important. So if you're not having a discovery call with somebody, I want you to have a discovery call. That means you pick up the phone for 15 minutes, you listen that entire time, and maybe the last 2 or 3 minutes you do the talking. Because most of the time I see in my host agency, my advisors are so excited to have a client. They get on and they just talk and try to be passionate and try to be fun. And let me tell you everything I know. And they're not listening. So listen, charge a service fee, tell them your value, and be indifferent. Indifferent because indifference sells, like, we don't need your business. We've got so much business going. Like, hey, if we can fit you in, fantastic. If not, we're all good, and then, emphasize how you can customize whatever their pain point is and have a solution for them.
All right, so a couple of follow-ups. The first of all, being different. I think that's a great tip. I mean, for your clients, it seems to work, Angela. One thing I did want to ask, you mentioned how important the discovery call is, and we talk about that a lot in this series. What kind of information, or I guess what kind of anything like specific, or even anything in general that advisors should look for in that discovery call in order to better inform them
Sure.
to make the right decisions when they have this relationship already?
Sure. I think it's so important to look for the tire kicker. First of all, you need to ask all of the questions. You need to ask, what the budget is. And if they're saying, I don't know what a budget is, I'm really definite about that. I'm like, well, once you decide your budget, let's schedule another phone call and then let's circle back. Because if they don't know their budget, or if they don't want to tell you their budget, they're not prepared to move forward. Or another thing might be, when you're asking all of your probing questions and listening, they might say, well, let me talk to my husband about it, or let me talk to my wife. If they're having to talk to a husband or wife, you're probably not going to close that. I always suggest, hey, before we even book the discovery call, hey, if there's 2 people deciding, let's get them both on the phone call, because, husband might not relay to wife what needs to be heard, and now she's out shopping it, or vice versa. And so if you notice, every time you go into like a condo presentation at Marriott or Grand Bayless or something, they always require like both of the deciders to be there. I like that too, because again, tire kickers, you can, and I love a Zoom call because you can see their facial expressions. And so if they're giving you some of these answers, then be like, I think that we need to circle back before we do any research, and define some of these questions, because you don't want to, and I'll tell you an example of somebody who called up, family of 5 to Japan. They paid a service fee. I said, what's your budget? I don't know what my budget is, because I don't know how much this is going to cost. We ripped out some $30,000 trip for his family. He came back and he's like, well, I didn't want to spend more than 20. And I was like, that's interesting, because you literally told me you didn't know your budget, but you did know a number. And that's where I think you got to get crystal clear with people. And I'll just say to people, If they're like, we don't know what the budget is. And I'm like, well, you probably have a number in your head of how much you want to spend. Now, let me be clear. We're not going to spend all of that, but we need to know so our suppliers can focus in on the right, set of values for you. And so those
Yeah.
are different things that you can look at and kind of gear in that. And then I think the last 5 minutes, you need to be explaining your value, why you charge a service fee, why you're the best in the business. And I tell my agents all the time, I don't care if they've been with me 2 weeks, because we have 70 agents at our host agency. I treat them all like superstars. I don't care if you've been here 2 weeks or 20 years with us, you sell like a boss. You get on with complete confidence and you just run with it.
So those are 2 tips that we've never gotten before. The budget we've gotten before, and I think that's incredibly important because especially when you're planning for a high net worth person, the range of what you're willing to spend on a trip seems to vary so much. So it does seem to make your job easier if you can zero in on number in general or even a range. But getting all the deciding parties in the same room or on the same call seems to be so important, like you mentioned, and we never heard that before. So I think that's a great tip for everyone to have.
Can I say one more thing and
Yes,
just interrupt
please.
you?
Yeah.
On your Uber high net worth clients now, those who are really spending 40, 50, 60, they're not going to have a budget because again, the question to ask them is, what do you value in this? What do you want to see happen? What do you expect out of this vacation? Because they kind of don't care what they spend. They do, but they're willing to spend 10 or 20,000 more if that changes the ultimate outcome for them. And so you want to define what that outcome is.
So I want to ask you one more thing, Angela, before we wrap up today. Then I have a couple of questions in the chat I want to get to you at the end. Sheila, I'll get to your question once we wrap up this one. But I know you're very passionate about branding or about luxury brands. I'm curious if you could tell us a little bit about what advisors think about whether they're presenting their agency as a brand or themselves as a brand or presenting themselves in general to these luxury clients. What is important to know, what is important to think about when you are presenting yourself in whatever way you are, whether it's online or in person, like you mentioned before?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think I've said this on stage about 20 times, like you sell you. People are buying you as your brand. Okay. I think that is so important because ultimately at the end of the day, they can buy travel anywhere. They can buy it online, they can buy it direct, they can, buy it at the grocery store. But ultimately, when someone comes to a travel advisor, they're buying you. And so your branding really needs to reflect you per se, but then your logo, your marketing, the types of things you're putting out on social and in your newsletters all need to reflect luxury. Shy away from words like deals, specials, 2-for-1s, those types of things. We don't talk pricing in high-end travel. Okay, we talk value, we talk components, we try to show them a competitive advantage of why this would change their lives. Okay, so I often don't ever post brands even. I do because I run a big agency and we're B2C as well. But when I'm out traveling, I post the experience and I'm posting the inspiration. I don't know how many times I've heard people say like, oh my gosh, you inspired me to go to Malta, or you inspired me to go to Japan, or oh my gosh, the Serengeti, I want to do that now. You inspire me. Be an inspiration to people. And then everything you put out there, ask yourself, does that look cheap? Does that look low end? Does that reflect the type of person that I want to attract? Like you're manifesting something to people and putting it out into the universe. If you're always doing, XYZ Palace or whatever, XYZ resort in Mexico, for being a great deal, you're going to attract that deal seeker. We don't want to attract the deal seeker anymore. Okay. And I tell my advisors, it takes 2 to 4 years to build a good book of business. This is not something you're going to do overnight because luxury it's a process. And you've got to think about it like that. You can't get discouraged. You have to go, this is a process. I'm going to start building today, little by little, to make this happen. And it will happen. Believe it or not, you put it out there, it'll happen. I've had advisors come to us. They had 4 bookings. One just closed a $125,000 Japan trip at Kensington. and she's upward trending $1 million. Another advisor sold 10 yacht charters last year and this year, and she came to me in 2020 with no business, no experience. You can do it. It's getting in front of the right products. It's looking at this supplier today that's sponsoring this. Look at the people that they're bringing onto the show and watching these programs and looking at the brands that are sponsoring these things, and you'll be in bed with the right people.
Yeah, and then branding, we had Alvin Adriano from ASA on to talk about branding a couple months ago. So if you do want some tips on like specifically building your brand, I think that's a good place to start. But it's funny, Angela, I was at a different conference this week with a luxury travel supplier, and they awarded, like you mentioned, the kind of the volume you can do versus the commission you can have. They awarded an award to an advisor who had made 6 figures on a single booking because of obviously the price of the booking. So it does seem like luxury also, being able to sell luxury travel well does afford you the opportunities to rely on less volume in terms of your bottom line.
Right. And definitely, I think working smarter, not harder is the way to go. And I think everybody can be a 6-digit commission earner. That should be your goal. Do $1 million, you'll make 6 digits, but look at how you do it. And I want to throw this in, and I know this is a little bit off our script that we were talking about, but you really have to know what you want to make at the end of the year. You need to know what your financials are. You can't just be like, oh, I hope I make, 30,000 this year. No, if you want to make $100,000, you write that down, and then you tell me how you're going to get there. You need to have a business development plan to do that. So I'm going to sell X amount of river cruises because I'm going to make X amount of commission on that. I'm going to sell 5 safaris. That's going to add up to $30,000 in commission. I'm going to sell this. And you tell yourself what you're going to do. If you're just out there randomly hoping you make, which I know most advisors make under 20,000. I know many advisors that make over 6 digits, and I've done that for years and years, and in the multiples of that. And you can do that too.
All right, so I promised to get to Sheila's question. And again, you talk about mindset a lot, Angela. And we just touch on it there. This one might help people inform, but Sheila wants to know, apologies. Does Angela have any suggested books or podcasts that will help get advisors into the right mindset or assist with developing best practices? So anything like the mindset seems to be very important. When you're talking to luxury travelers and when you're motivating yourself, everyone has to be a self-motivator in the industry. Anywhere they can go to get inspiration to accomplish something along those lines.
Yeah, it's so funny you asked that because when I just taught a college course in 2020 at Brigham Young University, and I had a whole list of books, but my favorite is Grit. The book Grit is so fantastic. I feel like everybody should read that, even your kids, about how to just get a gritty mindset, because travel, it's a gritty industry. And then I would study any podcast. I don't know if I have a favorite, but I would study entrepreneurial type things. You need to know how to run a business. You need to know how to be an entrepreneur. It's not enough to just be passionate about travel, how you made this your second career in your retirement, or you switched over from nursing. That's not enough, okay? You need to know how to become an entrepreneur and really know how to move a business forward. You are a business owner, and you need to know how to run a business, and you need to know how to do it well.
All right, so I first of all, Angela, I know you're traveling, like you mentioned at the beginning of the call. I want to thank you so much for your time. You have so many great comments. People who want to keep listening to you. I have a question about the recording. We'll have this recording up on Travel Market Report in our newsletter tomorrow. You can check it out there, or again, we'll drop the YouTube link in there too. You can check it out there. But anywhere people can find you, Angela, that you want to plug or that you want to mention, because we do have a lot of people asking where they can get more from you.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I have my website, luxurytraveluniversity.com is my private consulting. I work one-on-one with agencies. I work one-on-one with brands. I train a lot of host agencies in the industry. My travel agency is Trips and Ships, but our host agency is luxuryhostagency.com. And then my Facebook group that is wildly popular with nearly 50,000 people is Luxury Travel, Social Media and Marketing for Travel Professionals. And there's lots of conversation going on in there, and you'll see this video up in there as well. But people are always asking great questions in there. So,
all right. So from my end, be active. Go where you want your customers are and make actual connections. Show them the model home. Be different. And then the last tip I thought was really great was know what you want to make and build a plan to get there. I think that's really an incredible tip. Angela, thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time. We really love having you, and hopefully we'll have you back here in the future too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Rolf, again from Swan Hellenic. And thanks everyone for coming out. And like always, hopefully we'll see you back here in a couple weeks. Until then, everyone be healthy, and I'll see you all soon.